what's going on in the church and the reason that Paul has written these letters to the church in Corinth. Now, chapter 7 is a teaching on marriage. Now, concerning the things about which you wrote to Paul, it is good for a man not to touch a woman, but because of immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each man is to have her own husband. Now, Paul's teaching leaned toward being single and celibate, because his teaching was that you're much more free to serve the Lord if you have no encumbrances of a moral or a sexual union, and you're more able to just go wherever the Lord would send you. That's not me. I don't know about that, but that was his teaching. Verse 3, the husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body. I was waiting for somebody to say something. But the husband does. And likewise also the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. And what he's talking about here is a common respect for one another within the marriage and within the marriage bed, a common love and respect for one another, and being able to how many of you have gotten to the point where you can read the mood of your husband or wife? Can you do that? I got heads shaking both directions. All right. How many of you should have gotten to the place where you could read the moods? Would it save a lot of heartache if you? Yeah, too late. I just knew. Yeah. Marriage is a tough thing. Marriage is a tough thing. It really is. Everybody in here is married, right? Except Philip. Philip, you'll find out someday, buddy. You will find out someday. It's a tough, tough thing. 56, and I'm still hoping to get it right. And yeah, you're right there. Anyway, there was one other place. There was one other section I wanted to read here. I marked. What is? Let's talk about a word. What is liberty to you? What is freedom? What is liberty to you? What is liberty? Freedom? Choice? I wish I had a coin, and I don't, because it's a two-sided coin. What's the flip side of liberty and freedom? Responsibility? Responsibility. Freedom and responsibility are different sides of a same coin. When we entered into World War II, the lines were so long for men and women to join up. And we just passed Pearl Harbor Day on Saturday, I believe it was. And once that happened, men and women both just flocked to the recruiting stations. They had seen what could happen to their liberty by what had happened at Pearl Harbor. And of course what was going on in Europe. In my opinion, we may have put our heads in the sand a little too long, maybe, but I wasn't there, so I don't know. But the only way to defend liberty is with a sense of responsibility. And that's what was driving these men and women to enlist, was a sense of responsibility. Pearl Harbor had been attacked. One of the soils of the United States had been attacked. It's the same as dropping a bomb on the twin, or flying a plane into the Twin Towers. It's all the same. It kicks up within us a desire, a remembrance of what freedom really is and how fragile it can be. But then that coin flips over, and then that sense of responsibility comes to the surface. And that's what pushes men and women to serve in the military, whether at wartime or not. It's what sent men and women to Vietnam, to Korea, of course, to both world wars. And I have a concern. I was talking about this early to somebody else. With the young people that we have today, I worry that if suddenly we are pushed into a corner as a country, as a nation, can the generation that exists right now, can it fight a war? Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I don't believe I'm not talking about you, but I don't believe we have instilled within the generation. What is it, we're the boomers, or I am, and then there's are y'all, what's the name of y'all? Y'all have a name. You have a letter. Are you a Gen Z or something? What? X, and then a millennial. Where's a Z? Is that what it is now? Is that the youngest ones now? No, not. I don't know. Anyway, it's just such a different mindset than it was. And I know I sound like an old man, and I am an old man. I found that out last Sunday. I'm an old man. But when I was young, we played Army. We played all these sorts of things that just horrifies people nowadays. And I don't know why. But anyway, I don't know that I'll still be here, but you will be. So I hope there are still people to fight for us, like so many before us have fought for me and for you. All right. One more thing. It says chapter 10 says an idea is to avoid Israel's mistakes. For I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea. What are they talking about there? Coming out of the Egyptian captivity. They crossed the Red Sea. It was a cloud and a pillar that kept them safe. And all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness. You remember, everybody passed away in the wilderness except how many? 2. Just 2. Joshua and Caleb were the only 2 that made it. And the others wandered for 40 years in the wilderness And they passed away in the wilderness because of their unbelief. Something we need to recall and remember, that God is not in a hurry. I don't know what his timetable is, but he is not in a hurry. And he will allow us in the United States to wander in the wilderness for as long as it takes. And he will bring forth a remnant like he always has, a group of people, and it's usually a very small group of people, who will believe and trust in him and do as he has called us to do. Now, we tend to think that we are the chosen people here in the United States, but lest I make any of you mad or offend any of you, I would challenge any one of you to tell me what page in this book that you find the United States written about. Where, just what book, what chapter, what page? We're not in here. We're not in here. Doesn't mean God doesn't know we exist. It doesn't mean that God is not with us, because he is. What nation is the center of this book? Israel. And as we go along, after the first of the year, we'll go back and study some of the prophetic books and see how prophecy has come true through the decades and millennia even, and see where we're headed. See where we are headed. I'm not predicting the end of the world, because I don't have that ability. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There will be, in my belief, there will be a rapture. I believe it will be prior to the tribulation. Many people believe that it will be prior to the tribulation. Many believe that it will be in the middle of the tribulation, 3.5 years, and then another rapture, and then another 3.5. And there aren't so many anymore that believe it's post-tribulation. Most of those people, I guess, died out after World War II, because the war was so bad that the premise of a post-tribulation rapture is that the world's getting better. Things are getting better. And as people get better, then ultimately God will then take us out. But World War II kind of shot that down. So there will be a rapture and a tribulation, and then a 1,000-year reign. These are things that I believe. And then Satan will be released from the pit, and he and his buddies will meet those who have come from heaven. In other words, those people that have gone before us in death, and perhaps will be there by then, will come back in order to live upon the earth during the 1,000-year millennial, 1,000-year reign of peace relative. And then ultimately, when Satan is released at the end of the millennial, there will be a fight. And the fight will take place in a place called Armageddon, which is the plain of Esdraelon, and by the sea on the western side of Palestine. I have to do this to get west and east. I always have. Western side of Palestine, where it's flat over the western highlands, where it flattens out by the sea. And that's where the last great war will take place. And Revelation tells us that not only we will fight, but God will fight for us. And the angels and the people that have gone to heaven already that will come back with him, that they will come back with him. They will fight. We will all fight. And when it's all said and done, there will be a great white throne judgment where God will judge his people. And on the left, he will put the goats to eternal damnation. And on the right, he will put the sheep, which will follow him into the kingdom of God forever. And that's, of course, that's a pretty quick overview. But I believe those things will happen. We're just in a holding pattern right now. We're in a very long holding pattern. The last really, after the coming of Christ and the sacrifice of Christ and the raising of Christ and Christ's ascension, the next really huge prophetic event didn't take place. That was 37 AD, sort of. Didn't take place until 1948. That's a lot of years in between. A lot of years in between a great prophetic event. And what happened in 1948? The Jews went home. It had been telling them this for 2,000 years. They'll have the land. They'll have the promised land. But it was not until 1948 that they got it, that they went home. Now they've had to fight for it since they got there. And let me tell you, I don't know what you think about the nation of Israel, but I don't want to fight them. I don't want to fight Mossad because they don't come to play. I remember when I was young, and maybe does the word Entebbe mean anything to you? Was that the airplane that was taken over and it was seated? It was allowed to land, but it had hostages, and Saudi Arabians, I think, had taken it hostage. They were fully armed to the teeth, and it landed in Israel just to refuel and was going to go wherever it was going. And we tried to negotiate, and we tried to offer them money, tried to offer them gold and silver and all this stuff, and it went on and on and on for days. And then Israel said, all right, it's our turf, we'll take it. And I think it took about 14 minutes, and it was over. The Mossad just stormed that plane and killed every one of them. Not the hostages. I think a couple were accidentally. But they just went in, and they have a scorched earth school of thought, if that means anything to you. And, these are the people that are being picked on right now. You don't want to make them terribly mad because they don't play. Anyway, that has very little to do. But since 1948, we've been waiting again. We're in another long holding pattern. And in my opinion, the next thing that is to take place is the advent of Antichrist. This person, this man that's supposed to be identified as the person that is the Antichrist. And then, is everything okay? Are they laughing? No, that's okay. You need to stop me. That's the most important thing. If you heard it. Mm-hmm. 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 It has, and one of the things involved in that is the Temple Mount. We're supposed to regain power over the Temple Mount, but right now there's still the mosque is still on top of that. So that yes, there are other things to take place, and I don't know how you feel about the rebuilding of the temple. Some say that all the materials that are needed are tucked away somewhere in Israel, and that they have the ability to rebuild the temple. I don't know, but we'll talk about those things. But for me, the next really, really big thing, universal thing, is the coming or the identification of the Antichrist and then rapture and all these things. And once things start happening, they're going to happen. Yeah, they're going to boom, 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 boom. Now, I don't know if I'll be here. I'd kind of like to see it. I really would. I mean, I've been in the game this long. I'd kind of like to see the fourth quarter, or the 2-minute warning anyway. So anyway, it's very exciting. And after the first of the year, I'd already planned that we would look toward a timeline. And there are many timelines that have been laid out for us, some a little more accurate than others, and nobody knows exactly the timeline anyway, because even Jesus doesn't know. He knows all these events are coming, but he doesn't know when. He said, not even me, not even I, the Father has not told anyone what the exact timeline is going to be. So you and I need to be careful whose books we buy, that are telling us exactly the exact date and time, because there have been many in my lifetime that have been written. And late great Planet Earth, Hal Lindsey, I don't know if you remember that. It was back in the 60s probably. And that thing sold, I mean, just millions. And it had a date, and the date came and went, and he said, dang, I missed it 5 years. So I write another book and then sell another book. And anyway, so there'll be a lot of that. Any questions or comments? I'm sorry about tonight. Yes, sir.
We were talking about America being in prophecy.
Yes.
And in Revelation 13, it talks about a two-horned beast.
Mm-hmm.
Seven-headed beast and a two-horned goat coming out of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And some have lined it up to say this could be seven-headed beast could represent the papacy, the Catholic Church, and then the beast that comes out of the earth could represent America in that sense. I don't know who they. It's one of those weird things.
There's always a they, and they always have a plan. And I've heard that, all my life. I just don't. Let me say this, and I don't mean it the bad way. If we just suddenly disappeared, the United States just suddenly disappeared, it wouldn't affect this. I don't think it would affect it at all. Yes.
That's the point. The Bible doesn't mention America at all. And yet, there's going to come a time. All of these things that are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, America still, for whatever reason, why God allows, is still the most powerful economic, military machine in the world at this point. Now, when all of that stuff starts
Thank you for tuning in today to hear Pastor David's message. We hope that you take this opportunity to draw closer to your family and closer to God. If you want to financially support this ministry, we will include a link below where you can send a donation. If you enjoyed the service today, please click the like button for this video. And if you would like to follow us on YouTube, just click the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to click the YouTube notification bell so you'll be notified every time a new video is posted. I hope you have a blessed day, stay safe, and stay strong in Christ.